Hello and welcome to Bootlegged episode 2. In this episode we're going to show you how to control a remote control car from a computer running Windows or an iPod Touch.
And so I'm Nicholas Lombardi,
And I'm Garrett Satterfield.
and this is Bootlegged.
So to control a remote control car from a computer or iPod Touch,
You're going to need a parallel cable, which is the old printer cable that your mom used to use to connect her ancient printer to her computer. Or you can use a parallel port and solder it to little pins on the back. These little holes there are kind of hard to solder to, so it's probably better to just splice a parallel port cable because those are pretty readily available.
you're also going to need an NPN transistor for every control on the controller, like up, down, left, right. You can get these at Radio Shack and in just about any electronics store. You're going to need a soldering iron, and you're going to need a voltmeter. Okay, so now that you have your parallel port spliced, you need to find out which pins go to which wires. We're only going to need 5 wires for this car. So the pins we need is 2 through 5, and then a ground, which is any pins between 18 and 25. So to find out which one goes to which, you make a light hooked to a battery, and then you make it where when you touch it, it completes the circuit. So you just touch it to the wires, clip it on the pin you want to find out, so 2 through 5. Touch it to the wires until you find the right one. Then you know that that's the right wire.
And so it's also worth mentioning that those cables are not universal USB cables. The colors are the same on the inside, but we've taken apart different ones of these and found just a varying array of colors. So there's no standards as far as that goes. And so now we're going to take the remote apart.
Okay, so you want to make sure that the controller for the car that you took apart has these little metal push button things, because if you get a car like this that has the sliders, it's really hard to do because the solder doesn't stick to it because they grease the sticks, and then the wiring is really complicated, so you just want to avoid that altogether. So try to find a car that has the push buttons.
Okay, so now we have our controller part, and we've popped the 9-volt battery back in, and we need to solder the leads for the directional controls. So we want to turn it on, and we have our voltmeter here, and we have it set for the lowest DC voltage setting. And what we're doing is testing the polarity on the leads on the directional control. And on your voltmeter, the red is always positive and the black is always negative. And if you have the correct polarity set, your voltmeter should jump to a positive number, and if you have the wrong polarity set, it will try to go backwards to a negative number.
So now we need to solder the transistors to the switches so that we can control it from the computer. So if you're looking at the front side of the transistor, from left to right it goes emit, base, and collect. We want the collect to be on the positive and the emit to be on the negative. Okay, so now we need to solder the parallel port cables to the transistors. On the program we're using, pin 2 on the parallel port is forward, pin 3 is backwards, pin 4 is left, and pin 5 is right. So we want to solder the positive ones here onto the base of the transistor. And then we instead of using 4 ground, we had 1 running out, then we just spliced it into 4. So you need to solder one of these to the top or to the negative of the controller. And then that's basically how you do it. So we got everything soldered to the controller, and now I just need to plug it in and see if it works.
And we have this application that we wrote in Visual Basic, and it's available at the URL below, and it's also, we have a link up in our show notes. And this basically goes out through the parallel port and gives all the information to your remote control to control your car.
And you can also download the source code at area64.tv and edit it yourself if your car has different functions than ours.
Okay, so you're going to want to notice the port number on this application right there. That port number may be different depending on your computer, and the way you find out the port number for your parallel port is to go to Start, My Computer, right click on it, go to Properties, then go to the Hardware tab up at the top, then go to the Device Manager, and in here you want to go onto the COM ports and hit the little plus sign. And there's the printer port, so you can right click on it, go to Properties, and go to Resources. And the I/O range number, see that number right there, the 0378? That's the number that we currently have plugged in to our little application right there, 378. And that's going to be your port number for this. So now we can test and make sure this works. Okay.
So to control it from your iPod Touch or iPhone, you're gonna have to remote desktop into the computer that the Visual Basic application is running on. So to do this, you'll need to download VNC. We'll have a link to that in our show notes. But first, you need to set up a static IP so your IP doesn't keep changing every time you turn it on and off your computer. So to do this, you go to Control Panel, Network and Internet Connections, Network Connections, and then select the one you're using. Go to Properties, go to TCP/IP, go to Properties, And then instead of it being selected to here, you're going to want to select here and then type in an IP address like 192.168.0.112. And depending on your router, you might not be able to take any number you want, but normally you can take ones like this. And then for the default gateway, you want to put your router's IP address, 192.1. Most of the time it'll be 192.168.0.1, but sometimes it's 1.1, or it could be anything, and just check your router, and then okay, close. So after you set up a static IP, you're going to want to install VNC. It's pretty straightforward, just like any other install. But after you do that, you want to go here. You want to click the little icon, and then you want to go configure password, and then you want to type a password that you'll use to log into it. So to control your computer and the car from your iPod Touch or iPhone, you're going to need a hacked iPod Touch or iPhone, and go to installer.
And it's worth mentioning that we're not covering how to hack your iPhone or iPod Touch just yet, because there are a lot of tutorials out there. It's pretty straightforward, and if you really want to see it, we might do it for another episode later.
Okay, then you want to go to network, not multimedia, network. Then scroll down to the bottom, and then you want to do Vanessa and install. I'm going to go home, open it up, and then you want to go to create a new one. You want to enter in the IP address that you gave your machine, enter the password that you gave it. Now you want to give it a name, we don't really care, save. So you want to open up the Visual Basic application on your computer, tap it to connect, it will connect, and then there you have the Visual Basic program to control the car. And that's it for this episode of Bootlegged.
If you want to email us, you can do so at bootlegged@area64.tv. Questions, comments, concerns, show ideas, whatever you want to know. Our forums are up, area64.tv. We've got a link up there. Chad Miller filmed this episode of Bootlegged, and so I'm Nicholas Lombardi.
And I'm Garrett Satterfield.
And that's Bootlegged.